Hello, my name is Naja Tao, and I've been doing a series of conversation starter questions. I'm trying to get to 100 conversation starter videos. This question is from scienceofpeople.com, and it is: if one person doesn't find a joke funny, does it mean they have a lousy sense of humor, or is the joke flawed? And that is a tough question for me. I've been on both sides. I do a fair amount of creative writing, and sometimes people don't find the jokes I write to be funny. And I realize they aren't seeing and sensing what I see and sense. But I've also totally had people cracking jokes in situations in which I wish they just wouldn't even try, especially at work. Um, but I think that it's both. I think that everything has an element of humor to it. And I think that if you can't sense the thing that makes something at least kind of funny, your sensor just isn't as good as somebody who can sense the humor. For example, I've been watching reaction videos to the body cam footage of a 550-pound woman named J-Bay. In the body cam footage, she's having a mental health crisis, and she got arrested probably so that she wouldn't have to sleep on the streets at night. And in one reaction video, the two people reacting are hooting and hollering and laughing. And my first instinct was, that's not funny. But it is, isn't it? Like, there's just something humorous about this situation in which these really, really patient, long-suffering cops are just stuck grinning and bearing it while J-Bay is saying anything and everything to make herself look like a victim. And she is perhaps a victim of many things, as we all are. But in these, efforts to flag down people's help and concern, she's doing crazy stuff, like accusing the officers of raping her. And then they roll her up like a 550-pound burrito, and then they put her onto a tarp to transport her like a beached whale. She's 550 pounds, but she calls the cops pigs, and she's naked. So all of that is really funny stuff. It's just that it's raw life. And in life, the humor is mixed in with a lot of other emotional stuff, like sadness, maybe irritation at some of her behavior, maybe a sense of injustice that some people in our society are completely alone, and they might be unhoused. But it's up to the joke writer to take that raw humor that we find in life and refine it into something where the audience immediately notices the humor. So the comedian points out where that humor is. And that's actually a pretty difficult thing to figure out. It depends on a very exact phrasing and structure and a very certain delivery. And I think that um, takes a certain formula or formulas and a certain set of skills. There are rules, I believe, to getting the average person to laugh at jokes. One rule is how a joke is generally not considered funny if somebody is seriously injured or if a disadvantaged group is being made fun of. So if someone doesn't laugh at your joke, there's a good chance that the joke is flawed. But you have to remember with jokes that you're aiming for the average audience member. So a lot of comedians suggest experimenting with jokes with an audience and avoiding testing jokes with friends and family because they're going to have a bias for or against you most of the time. And so not everyone is your average audience member. And not everyone will find a joke funny, even if most people find the joke funny. So I'm not sure you could say the joke is flawed if most of the people find it funny and there are just some people who don't find it funny. But that's the example with J-Bay. Let's take a more extreme example. Food stamps are getting cut off in the US in November. And every time I see a post on that topic on Facebook, there are people who have clicked the laugh emoji. Is starvation funny? Is it funny that a wealth tax of just over 2% on the wealthiest 1% of Americans could pay for SNAP, Medicare, and Medicaid? And we're kind of going after people who need $300 a month for buying groceries. My answer is no. Of course, that's not funny. But humor is a logic game. The structure of humor is a lot like structuring a philosophical argument. And by the way, my favorite class in college was the philosophy of logic. I think it's a surprising amount of fun. I thought I would hate the class. I thought, my brain would get all twisted in these knots and I, would just be suffering in this class. But I actually loved the class. But anyway, so the people laughing at SNAP being cut have a different set of premises that they have accepted. They reject the premises that these people will starve. They don't think people are going to starve because SNAP benefits are cut off. They reject the assumption that wealth should be more evenly distributed. I'm under the impression that they think people who are richer work harder and deserve more. So they think that it's funny that people who have been exploiting their resources for a long time in many cases are finally going to have to suffer like they've been suffering at a job they don't always like. It's envy. It's justice. It's Schadenfreude. That is a kind of humor. Is that joke flawed? Or do people fail to see the humor in that situation? Well, I think the joke is flawed for one audience and not another. And I think the people who don't find it funny just might not be able to see the humor in that. So this is a very complex question. I do want to add that I think sometimes people find a sense of superiority. Sorry, my mouth just wasn't working. I think people find a sense of superiority in not finding things funny. But I think that is a very foolish habit. I think that laughter and humor are some of the very limited number of things that make life worth living. And I think if you're not taking every single opportunity you have to feel joyful and lighthearted, you're just not maximizing the amount of happiness that you could be feeling in life. So, those are some of my thoughts about the question. If one person doesn't find a joke funny, does it mean they have a lousy sense of humor, or is the joke flawed? And if you have anything that you'd like to say about the things I have said in this video, or if you have an answer of your own to this question, please leave all of that in the comment section of this video. Please like or dislike. Please subscribe. And I hope to see you in another video. Thank you.